Street.
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy?
Don't move. We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Helena! Dr. Jones, get him. Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all.
You stole it.
Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
This way!
Fasten your seatbelts. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes, and now a final triumph.
Give him hell, Indiana Jones! A few times in my life, I've seen things. I've been tortured with voodoo. Been shot 9 times, including once by your father. Sorry! But I've been looking for this all my life.
Iconic.
Exactly.
You got our own one, Indiana.
Hey, you know what's cool about it? They made him look really young. You see, they
Absolutely,
use that
yeah.
whole thing where they're going to do flashbacks and everything. And again,
I love
we've
that.
we determined I look like the guy in the very first movie that had his face melted instead of.
Yeah, not quite what we're going for.
What an iconic movie! Finally,
I
going
know.
to have an ending to it. So
Love
we'll
Harrison
see.
Ford.
Blues.
Well, thank
Our
you all
ending
for
is here.
joining us.
Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the Shop LC, where our purpose is to deliver joy.
Downtown Wichita, Kansas.
Hi, I'm Jamie and I'm a Mouthy Broad.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I love being on the Mouthy Broad show. It is such a good time.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm proud to be a Mouthy Broad.
They're the Mouthy Broads.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Mouthy Broads. We're happy that you joined us this evening, and I'm hoping you will be too. I'm Cheryl Nutt.
And I'm Jamie Whitfield.
I'm Kimberly Gordon Garcia. And we have a special guest with us this evening on Zoom, and I will let you introduce her. You know her better than I do.
We have Gigi Sabat here tonight with us, and I met Gigi through Barron Ridge's speakers agency because we are both keynote speakers with Barron Ridge Agency. So I met Gigi through there and was asked to speak on a global panel with her. And so we went and I did all of that with her, and then I introduced Jamie to her because Jamie had a story to tell. So she was on one of Gigi's global panels as well. And then we ended up doing a book with Gigi. We're I guess we would be co-authors in her book. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But Gigi is CEO and founder of Life Service Center of America. She is a very good, has very good leadership skills, women's empowerment speaker. She does all of these really cool podcasts on LinkedIn and I don't know all the places you do them, but I know you do a lot of them, Gigi. She's also an author of Walk With Me and God First that have been endorsed by Les Brown. She is also, or was, a former intern with the U.S. Senator Marco Rubio, is what I liked. She is also finishing her degree in law with emphasis on common sense.
I love it.
And I love that because we definitely could use that. But in common sense, I should say constitutional law. And anyway, this is Gigi, and we'll get into more about who she is and what she does. But this is how I met her, and this is how Jamie met her, and we're proud to know her.
Hi, Gigi.
Hi, ladies. It's such an honor to be here with you today.
We're really happy to have you here.
Yes, we are.
So I'm going to start off by asking you right off the bat, what prompted you to start writing?
Absolutely. So essentially, I've always loved to write, but when we talk about books, I never thought in a million years that was even possible. But here's the reality: all things are possible with God, right? And so the fact that it did happen, I say, okay, God, I understand, because all things are possible with God. So it should not be a shocker.
So, but what was the inspiration?
Absolutely. So essentially, a few years ago, I almost lost my life, death by strangulation in a domestic violence relationship. And after everything that happened, I stepped into God's purpose for my life, and I launched a podcast, I launched the books, and I launched the company Life Service Center of America. And so when we talk about the books, that's just me really being in tune with God's purpose for my life. And I'm just so in tune with God's purpose for my life, and I just stepped into purpose.
Very cool. So, tell us about the first book was let's see.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that basically talking about your journey with walking with God?
Absolutely. So when it's a spiritual journey. So when we talk about walk with me, it's all about helping others walk with purpose and understand the importance of never giving up. And then I also wrote a book titled God First, which is all about raising awareness about keeping God first in our lives, and not just in our personal lives, but in our businesses as well.
You know, and I think that's really good advice because so many times we're dealing with businesses that have unethical practices, and I really think that's a shame, because many times if they were to extend the kind of energy it takes to run a business and do it the right way, they would probably be so much more successful than they are by being unethical.
Absolutely, I agree. And so essentially, oftentimes folks find themselves facing several challenges. Now, if you're a business owner and you're listening to this, then you're aware of the challenges that you face and we continue to face as business owners. But the reality is God wants to be a part of your business. And if you have a challenge or if you're facing a battle within your business, give it to Him. He wants our battles, and our battles are not for us. And He wants us to give it to Him. He wants us to come to Him. And oftentimes what I found, and I mentioned that in the God First book actually, is that oftentimes folks believe that they cannot go to Him because they believe they need to be perfect or everything needs to be perfect. And the reality is that is not true. That is not the case. God loves you as you are. He loves you as you are. And so essentially you can come to Him, and He's always there to listen.
So did you have any questions for?
I'm kind of interested in the fact that you're continuing your law degree. Where, with you doing that and all this other cool stuff that you're doing, how do you think the two fit together?
Absolutely. So essentially, it's great to know the law and have that legal education. But the story on that, I actually mentioned that in the Walk With Me book as well, is that after my high school graduation, my great aunt, I made a promise to her that I would obtain that, because that's what she asked me to obtain. And so that's a promise I hold dear to my heart. And I love my great aunt. And so that to me means a lot. And so essentially I'm going to continue to do that, but I also love to help people. And so I think the two, like you said, Kim, it does intertwine, and that is the truth. And it goes to serving others. It all goes to serving others. Regardless of what it is that I do, it's always towards serving others, because that's what I love to do.
Well, I think it's cool that you have the common sense end of it, that if anything comes up in your business or other business where you help people, you will have that knack and that knowledge that's needed to guide them in that right direction. So you've got the both of best worlds. You've got that common sense thing going on, and you got God. So the two together, I mean, how can you lose?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So Gigi, tell us, you said that you had you were in an abusive relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little about that, how long it lasted and what it took for you to get out of it?
Absolutely. So that one went on about a year, almost. It was ongoing. It was going to be about almost 2 years. And essentially I never saw that coming. I just never saw that coming. And so now that I'm aware of the red flags and signs, I say, okay, and then you start thinking, and if anyone's out there who's been through that situation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then you start thinking, well, okay, that happened, and you start putting the pieces together, and then you start looking at all the actions that were done, and you say, okay, yep, I was definitely in an abusive relationship. This definitely happened. And you don't know it until, again, for me, it was an advocate that had to tell me, yeah, this happened for sure. Like, if you recall, because there were 2 other times that I believe that I was strangled. And I remember the domestic violence advocate saying, yep, that happened. So if you recall it, based off what you said, that happened. And I said, oh my goodness, so you're telling me that this happened multiple times? And she said, yes, ma'am. And so it wasn't just the one that I recall, because the one that I recall vividly is the one when I was on the couch and I was actually able to see the abuser charge at me, beat me, almost strangled me to death, threw my phone across the room, and when I tried to get back up, I fell flat like a vegetable. And so the reason why, too, is because I had a friend of mine, she said, hey, Gigi, we were out playing basketball, she said, hey, and my neck was hurting, she said, hey, I think you may be being abused at home. And I said, well, wait a minute now. And to me, I'm not used to those things. So I wasn't aware of what was going on. But she kind of gave me an idea, hey, just look out, just be cautious. So when I did see the abuser charging at me, I kind of put my neck down like this. If your audience can see me, I put my neck down like this. And so the advocates told me essentially that's what may have saved my life, is that I did put my neck down a tad bit when I saw the abuser charging at me.
Wow.
How old were you, Gigi, when all this was happening?
I was 25 at the time.
Yeah.
So how did you finally extricate yourself from that relationship?
Essentially, for me, it was after almost losing my life. For me, that was the aha moment, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this happened, essentially, and that's why I'm such a strong advocate for it, because this should happen to no one, and regardless of whom you are, what profession you're in. And a lot of folks say, well, you're in law school, that can't happen to a law student. Yes, it can. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to teachers. It can happen to doctors. It can happen to professors. And so there's a stigma that's tied with, because of the type of profession that you're in, this cannot happen to you. That is not the case. This can happen to anyone, all age groups. And then there's another stigma that says, well, this can only happen to women. And that's not the case. This can also happen to men. Several of my good friends who are gentlemen have come forward and have stated that this has happened to them. Domestic violence needs to end. And when we talk about the signs and red flags, this is what we need to continue to educate others about. Are those signs and those red flags? And again, it does not matter the profession.
And, you know, to me, sometimes abuse is not necessarily physical. It might be verbal or mental abuse.
Absolutely. So it is not, exactly, you're correct. It's not just physical, it's also emotional, and then mental, and then there's also financial abuse as well. And so if you're listening to this message and you see some signs or red flags, or your friend or a family member may be in that situation, just let the proper authorities know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times, I know, because I was in domestic violence as well, that, you know, and a lot of times people don't believe you're in that relationship because of who is actually doing the domestic violence, because of who that individual is. Because if they're a prominent person in a business or in town, and everybody knows them, it's like, oh, you know, that couldn't be happening. But that's the case in a lot of cases. It is happening, but they don't want to believe that individual is actually doing it.
Yes, ma'am, that's absolutely correct. And oftentimes, the individual who is the abuser has what is called a narcissistic character trait. And also, too, oftentimes in the beginning of the relationship, they can come off to be very charming. And so that is what often causes the manipulation component, where an individual may not be aware of certain behaviors. And my good friend, he actually came forward about his abuse, and he shared with me that his abuser had so many narcissistic character traits. He said that he had to go to the extreme of going on YouTube and now understanding what a narcissistic character trait is, because he just could not believe what he was seeing with his own eyes and the abuse that he endured. And I said exactly what you said is a narcissistic character trait. That is exactly what it is. And so oftentimes that person can be very manipulative, and the signs and red flags are always there. And I remember what Daniel Gomez, a good friend of mine, he's like my brother, and he shared on our global domestic violence survivors event. He said that oftentimes, and what he heard in the panel was a lot of individuals saying, well, I wasn't aware of this person's behavior. I wasn't aware of whom this person was. And he said, it was always there. It was always there.
Well, many times you don't want to see the signs. But once you've had your eyes open to them, you can't help but see them. Especially, a lot of times, too, you can see it in another person's relationship easier than you can see it in your own.
That's very true. And I had a good friend of mine said that when you're in the picture, you don't see it. When you're out of it, you can see it. And I think that he made a great point. So a lot of my friends definitely came forward. They were very supportive. You know who you are. And they just a lot of the signs and red flags that I wasn't aware of, they also let me know, hey, that definitely is an abuser or with someone with a narcissistic character trait.
Well, I think because of people like you going out and using your voice with this, I think is very good, because now with that voice, I think a lot of it's easier to come up and know what's going on, and it's easier to spot this stuff because there's more info out there, more people talking about it. Because I know when I went through it many years ago, and you called the police department, it was like, well, unless you're dead, we can't do nothing about it. That was their deal back then. They didn't do anything about it. But now they do respond, and now they do help you, and now they do whatever is needed to put you in a safe place. And now there's more shelters.
There's a lot more resources.
A lot more resources.
A friend of mine who used to be a Wichita policeman, he's retired now, but he told me at one point that if they are called out on a domestic call, somebody's going to jail.
And that's true.
And it doesn't matter whether it's the male or the female. They're going to assess the situation, and they're hauling somebody off.
Yeah.
Yes, and definitely, for sure, I can definitely tell you that I felt very supported by my community, and definitely I felt unsafe at the time when it happened, and then I felt very supported by the community. So I just appreciate the advocates, and I appreciate the community, period. And oftentimes individuals will say, it doesn't matter the demeanor of someone or how tall or how short the person is. This can happen to anyone, right? And I want folks to really understand that this can happen to your neighbor. This can happen to a family member. It can happen anywhere. Does not matter. Just be cautious and just be aware and be careful of whom you're in a relationship with. And not just that, too. Don't blame yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself, because that can oftentimes lead to a depression. It can lead to anxiety. Or even suicide. I've seen it all. I've seen, and especially with the work that I do, I've seen folks on the edge, and they say, I'm ready to end my life. Do not end your life. You matter. Your voice matters. And God has a purpose for your life. And domestic violence, it does not have to be it. It does not have to be it. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And like I said, for me, I definitely felt supported by the community, my family and friends, and I just continue to advocate for others, especially those who feel as though they don't have a voice. And for me too, I remember a good friend of mine, he said, you need to share your story. It may help someone. So for me, that was enough to come forward about my own story. Because I as I mentioned in Walk With Me, I was an introverted leader. So to come forward, it was like, okay, I have to be an ambivert, which means you're an introvert and an extrovert. But for me, just to know that it may help someone, that was enough. I said, okay, all right, God, I'm listening. I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. The purpose, staying in purpose.
You know, when a person stays in that relationship because they blame themselves, then by blaming themselves, they almost feel like they deserve that kind of treatment, and so they just put up with it. And that's such an unhealthy attitude. You know, you need to have the attitude that you don't deserve this kind of treatment, and you shouldn't put up with it.
Absolutely. And oftentimes they say love it can make someone blind, right? And so essentially you may not see those things because of love and all these things. And I love what Lindy Elrich says on the Walk With Me podcast. She said that you leave because of your children. You don't stay in the relationship because of your children. So oftentimes folks have it the opposite way. They say, I'm staying in this relationship because of my children. I'm not going anywhere. This is the father of my children. We have to stay together. I don't care what abuse I'm going through, but like Lindy said, it's the other way. It should be the other way around, because your safety and your children's safety is very, very important. And again, if you're in that situation and you're just coming out, it's not easy. And your healing is a process. I remember coming out of that, and like I said, I was very supported by my community, no questions there. But one thing is that I really had to really sit there and say, what just happened? Because that is not something that, especially if you're not aware of what it is and what can happen, it can be a complete shock for a lot of people. And so I said, what just happened? And I said, okay, domestic violence. And I really sat with it, and I really wanted to understand what domestic violence is. Because before you can even advocate, you better know exactly what you're advocating about. And I said, I'm not going to just sit here and say things and not have done research. So after my experience, I said, you know what? I said I need to sit with this and see what just happened. And I did further research, and I realized what just happened. And so there's gaslighting that's involved, there's the manipulation, and it's stonewalling. There's so much more. So if you're not aware of what those things are, you will not know the situation that you're in. So my heart goes out to so many people that have been there, and not just that, but are in it now. And a good friend of mine who's also a survivor, she said, hey, Gigi, during COVID, imagine the men and women who are in those situations that you and I have been in. And I said, you're right. Okay. And she said, are you open to hosting an event with me? And so we do one every single year. And that it all started around COVID, all of our events, regardless. And so her and I saw eye to eye, and we decided to continue to do those events every single year. And my heart goes out to her as well. And just like I said, all those individuals who have been going through it and have gone through it. It's just not an easy situation.
Well, and when you talk about staying in a relationship because of the kids, I think sometimes you lose sight of the fact that this is an abusive person. And if he gets angry enough, or she gets angry enough, the kids could be the next target.
Absolutely. And we see that several times, and we see that with folks killing their children because of the abuse, and it's not okay. And we see so much violence. It just needs to end. All of the abuse. There should be no reason why that's there. And the woman that I work with and the woman that I speak with, oftentimes the manipulation has been so draining, and it's so much on their shoulders. And that's what you're seeing in our society is that it's the mental breakdown that they've endured. And so really, especially if you spend several years with that same individual who's abusing you, it can be very chaotic, and it can really cause a lot on someone's mental health, is my point.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, and it doesn't just stop with the victim of the abuse. When you do have children in that equation, they suffer too, not just, maybe not physically, but emotionally and mentally. At the end of the day, the kiddos are seeing that. I know for me, my kids seen some things that they probably shouldn't have, and they talk about it. And I remember even growing up and my father doing that to my mom, and I have vivid memories of that. And here I am, I'm not going to disclose my age, but here I am older, and I still remember the trauma and the memories of the abuse that I've endured, throughout my life, from either seeing it or being the victim as well. And so our kiddos, they suffer that as well from seeing, mom being hit and being abused.
And they feel helpless because there's nothing they can do.
And the verbal abuse, like I know, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but it is what it is. But my ex-husband, he just could not stop with the negative remarks and things, even currently sometimes when he gets upset with me, and I'm just like, the kids don't need to hear that, and kind of getting them involved in things. And it's like, even when you do break free, you think it's still, especially when you have kids and they're semi part of their lives, it's like the abuse doesn't really end. I mean, maybe the physical part, but not the verbal, the mental and emotional part of it.
That's right, absolutely. And for those who are not aware, there was actually a child involved in my case, and that child called me mama. And so I don't have children of my own, so that child meant a lot to me. But I remember the pastor just saying, Gigi, I can see that weighing you down on your shoulders after I got out of that relationship. She said, you need to give it to God, give the child to God. And so I did. But that was very difficult, because as you can imagine, especially if the kid called me mama as well. And so looking back at some of the things that were done in the relationship that I was in, not just to me, and I started looking back and I started thinking back, I said, all these things that happened, especially with the child too. I remember one time the abuser went to go and hit the child, and I blocked it in the car. But to me, those are something, you're in the car, you're not really thinking about all these things, or that you're in an abusive relationship. You're not thinking about all those things. You're in a relationship. You're not thinking about that. But I just remember saying, why hit a child? And that's all I remember. I was like, what? And it was the manner of which it was going to be done. It was not a beautiful sight. And also too, I remember my friend being over, and then also too, the child saying that he was hungry, and I was going to get the child some food, and the abuser was like, don't feed him. And to me, and at the same time, here I am, I'm in law school too. I'm taking these classes on child abuse and all these things. So for me, just listening to these things as this is happening at home, it was not easy. So you can imagine. And for me, like I said, I just didn't understand. And especially, one of my favorite organizations too is No Kids Hungry. For many reasons, I love that organization, especially my family coming from poorest country in the world as well. But I don't think any child should go hungry, period. I think that is not okay. And so when I saw that happening, I was like, no way. I was like, the child is hungry.
So where do you come from?
I am from actually South Florida. So born in Coral Springs. Back then, no one knew what that was, so we'd say Miami. And everyone knew what Miami is, of course. That was way back then.
Okay. When you talk about being an advocate for other women, or not just women, other people who've gone through abusive relationships, do you have resources available for these people to avail themselves of that can help get them out of a situation?
Absolutely. So a lot of my good friends, some women, some men as well, they actually have nonprofit organizations, and they take it a step further, and they actually follow that process that you're referring to. So oftentimes I find myself having to refer folks to those individuals. Mm-hmm. So if it's anything out of my scope, or anything that I know is out of my scope, I'll refer them to my good friends who have those nonprofit organizations.
It's nice to be well connected, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You get it.
Well, because one person can't do it all, and it does take a village.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. It definitely takes a village, takes an army, and like Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I believe that it takes an army. Each and every one of you truly matter. Each and every one of your voices matters. And I'm just grateful for Kim and also Jamie being a part of the book, Healing and Growth there. Kim, I see it there. And also, too, when we talk about healing and growth, it's a spiritual journey. And one that we encourage folks to join us on. And how do we know? Because we've been there. So if you feel stuck in a situation that you're in, if you feel that you can't get out, here's the reality: you can. There is hope. Jamie is hope. Jamie is hope, and also Kim is hope. You all are hope, and so many of our other mutual friends who've been a part of that book as well, Mindy's, and so many other individuals. Bless your hearts for coming forward about your stories. It's not easy. It's not easy. And so when we say inspiring stories for massive transformation, it's because we've been there. We know. We know the transformation. But we know who has caused that to happen as well, God. And so that is the truth. Because it's not us. We are the children of God. God is the creator of all things. And oftentimes too, and I want to say this real quick, because a lot of individuals believe when they face a challenge or they have a battle, that it's God's fault. They say, okay, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? I'm done. I'm over it. No relationship there. No. And I love what my good friend Armando says. He has a book out, and he talks about the devil. And the truth is, the devil does exist. The devil does exist. And so we need to acknowledge that he exists and understand that God won't allow those things to happen to you, right? And so essentially, that is the devil. And so when we talk about giving it to God, give it to him. Give it to him, because he won't bring you to anything that he won't get you through.
That's right.
It's true.
Well, and I've heard it said many times, and I have to say I believe it, is that God won't give you anything more than what he knows you can handle. And sometimes you think, okay, I'm glad you have all this faith in me, but
Amen. And keep the faith. Hold on to faith. Don't give up. And actually, another part that I didn't get to mention is that after everything that happened and I stepped into God's purpose for my life, as far as the domestic violence and the sexual assault goes, I got baptized again as an adult. And I reread the Bible again as an adult. It's actually sitting right here in front of me right now. I'm looking at it. And when we talk about the Bible, it's so important to not just skim through and read his words, but continue to build a relationship with him. Continue to build a relationship with him. And understand that God seeks to meet you where you are. You do not need to be perfect. He loves you as you are. You are the children of God. And continue to read his words. Listen to his words. And one of my favorite verses, and I love it, and I can't say it enough, is Joshua 1:9. Haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid or discouraged, for your Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And oftentimes people believe that they are alone. And if you're listening to this message today, you're not alone. God is with you wherever you go. Keep faith.
you know, when you said the fact that that God is with us everywhere we go, and people sometimes are a little bit afraid of that because they don't want God to see things in their lives that they can't control or that they're ashamed of. They don't understand that God is there to help them through it. They don't understand that. I think sometimes when you read different passages in the Bible, depending on what's going on in your own life, those could take on several different meanings.
Absolutely. Yes. And then that goes back to healing and growth. And essentially we've all been there. And so I love Jamie's story. I love Kim's story when they share it. And I love what they're about, because why? You've been there. You've gotten unstuck, but it took time. It wasn't you woke up in the morning and that was it. No, it took time. Healing takes time. And everyone's healing journey is truly unique. And I've been there too. So we see eye to eye. Jamie, Kim, and I, we see eye to eye. We've all been there. And the other authors in the book, we've all been there, including my own mother. She's actually a part of the book. She came forward about her own story as well.
Was that a story that you were aware of as a child?
No, as far as the stories, my mother, she's actually been a part of 2 of the books now, Healing and Growth, and then also Overcoming Heart Blocks, Inspiring Stories for Healing from Trauma. And her stories I was not aware of, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, Ma, I wish I had known. And now I do. So our relationship has actually gotten a lot stronger since she's come forward about those stories.
So I have a couple questions. So my first one is, have you always been a spiritual person and having that connection with God, or does an event in your life drew you closer to your spiritual connection that you have now?
Great question, and I get excited and then full of joy because I just love my relationship with God. Right, if you can tell, right? And so when we talk about me as a child, I read the Bible as a child, and I just, God means the world to me. And so when we talk about my relationship with Him, it means a lot. And also too, it's always been there. It's always been there. But like you said, I think that it got a lot stronger after everything that happened that I cannot foresee as an adult. And I say that very in a firm manner, because for those who are not aware, I was actually sexually assaulted when I was 8 years old. So the fact that it happened again as an adult, I said, well, wait a minute here. I took all the precautions and you know what I'm talking about. If you're listening to this message and you've been sexually assaulted as a child, you've endured that childhood trauma, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You take all those precautions, you know exactly what they are. And so you don't think that it's going to happen again, but it did, right? And I was taken by an individual and I was sexually assaulted, and I never saw that coming. And the morning I woke up, I said, oh my goodness. And I just remember feeling numb to pain. And I said, I never want anyone to feel like this. And again, I was an introverted leader. So that would have stayed with me had my friend not intervened and said, hey, you need to share your story. It may help someone. And for me, that was enough to come forward about all of the things that happened to me, all of the challenges as far as domestic violence and sexual assault and so many other things.
So my next question is, what inspired you with the Healing and Growth to gather all the amazing people that you found
This is a lot of people.
to be involved in this series?
That one hit a nerve. Go ahead.
No, I was just, how did that, was that something God told you to do, is put us all together and just create something to give other people some hope, basically, is what it gives people?
Amen. Yes, ma'am. And that's just me listening to Him. And so when I see those things, and a good friend of mine, she loves to put it right in your face, right? She loves to put the events, the flyers and all that. I was just on one of her podcasts and she says, here it is. And I said, oh my goodness, because it's a reminder that it's not me. It's God. God already knows who's going to speak at the events. God already knows who's going to be a part of the books. I do not know. I'm just merely His servant. I'm just listening to Him and what He needs me to do. And I do not move without His direction. I do not move without His direction or what He needs me to do. And it's you all. It's you all. It's you, each and every one of you, brave souls. And it's not easy to come forward about the stories that you shared. It's not easy. I know because I came forward I shared my own, and I know. And when we talk about God, yes, He's over all of it, because He knows. He knows what the world needs, not us. Mm-hmm. He knows. And so it's so important, if you're listening to this message today, to listen to Him. And when you get quiet, you can hear Him. And it's so important to remain still. Oftentimes people say, well, why aren't you moving? What's going on? Kim, I saw that. Yes. And so, yes, you can laugh at that bit. Yeah, that was funny. I know. And so when we talk about
She said, you can laugh.
when we talk about remaining still, it is important. It is important. And so I will stay still sometimes. People say, why isn't she moving? What's going on? That's because I've literally learned, just listen to Him, and you don't question Him. Through everything that I've been through and everything I've endured, I've learned one thing. You do not question God. You say, thank you, God. And a good friend of mine, she shared that with me. We used to go to the church, and she shared with me, just don't question Him. Just say thank you.
Well, I find when you have Him in the mix of everything that you're doing, it's amazing how things succeed for you and how it works out. I know for me, because I'm an 8-time published author, and for me, when I've been asked to write some of these stories, and it has to do with the domestic violence, everything I've been through, the personal stuff, and it was like, okay, do I need to write this story or not? And it was like, okay, if it came easy to me and I was able to do it, then I knew that's what God wanted me to do. But if I have to sit there and think and try to get frustrated at it, I know when frustration plays a part in it, then it's like, okay, I can't do it. So I've had to turn stuff down because I knew that this wasn't the timing or I wasn't supposed to do it.
Absolutely,
does make a
because
big
of that
difference.
alignment with morals and values truly matters. And also too, I should let you know, it's those, and I ask folks, hey, if you want to be a part of the book, but here's the thing too, they answer the call. And so that's another key too, in answering the call, because it's not me, right? So if there's any issue there, I say, okay, I understand why. I already know why. I don't need to question it, because I know God, right? Then that's it. That's all that matters. And it's just been an honor to collaborate on the Healing and Growth Project with you, Jamie, and Kim. It's just such an honor, and so many other individuals and authors that we were able to connect with and write the book with. I believe that it took about a year, almost 2 years, almost 2 years.
It's been a while.
And it was an amazing project. It is an amazing project, and just again honored to have you all a part of the project. And it's a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual journey, and I want to be very clear about that. And one that, again, that I encourage folks to join us on the journey. We believe in you. We believe in each and every one of you, and you're not alone. You're not alone. We encourage you to read the book all the way to the end. And again, we say massive transformation because we've been there. We have been there, literally have been there. You're not alone.
You know, Gigi, one thing that strikes me about you and Jamie and Kim is that you're all very empathetic people. And it strikes me that reading all of these stories from other people that you have to read in order to put this book together would almost weigh on you. You know, I mean, because you kind of feel everybody's pain collectively. I would think that'd be kind of hard to deal with.
Absolutely, and it does, and you're right, I am an impact. Yes, a lot of people know that. It's obvious, yes, if you don't know. But when we talk about the stories, yes, a good friend of mine, we've been friends since middle school. She called me up one day. She said, Gigi, I hear some of your podcasts as well, and some of the stories, Gigi, that I'm reading, she says it too. She was very clear. She said, how, honey, are you taking all that, similar to you, what she just said. And she said, I can imagine how emotional that is. And here's the thing, it's just me understanding people from their place of pain. So after everything that happened, and I say this very clearly because it's the truth, this is how I feel. It's almost like I have an entirely different lens, and I'm able to understand people from their place of pain than ever before, literally, than ever before. It's on a whole nother level. And one that I don't believe that the English dictionary has the words for.
That's definitely more difficult being an empath, because I'm an empath as well. So, and with what I do, it can be very difficult at times, but you have to learn to manage it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
yes.
yeah, you do take on
especially
that.
when you're aware of all these things, you can definitely manage that, right? And especially with God's direction, you definitely can. So, Kim, I definitely see eye to eye with you on that.
Well, and you have such a positive, upbeat attitude now that I would imagine that women who talk to you or get a chance to be exposed to some of your thoughts, you know, reading the books or whatever, they have to draw from that there is hope and that there is life on the other side of the pain. And it gives them a reason to look for tomorrow.
Absolutely, yes. One of the women, she actually shared with me that she was in her abusive relationship, but she was with the gentleman for about 15 years. And she said she just heard some of the things that were shared at the conference and just shared some of the things that I've shared with her. And she's like, okay, this is it. She just had enough. But that was her own doing. She just couldn't take the manipulation that was going on in her relationship. And so if you're listening to this message and you're enduring any pain, or if you're facing something similar to anything that we mentioned today on today's show, seek help. And not just that, you're in danger. You don't have to be in that relationship. That relationship does not need to define you. It does not need to be it. It does not need to be it. A good friend of mine, she actually came forward about her story as well. She's actually open about it. She was in an abusive relationship, and now she's in and she's so happy in her new relationship. And so she's an example that there is hope. and she was able to have a child. She never thought that she would have a child, especially with all the abuse that she endured in her previous relationship. And so again, it is possible. There is hope. I look at my friend and I say, okay, yes, there is hope. There is hope. And with the relationship that I'm in now, I'm just like so grateful, and I'm just cautious, and I'm just taking my time, and I'm just grateful. And I know who's behind it. It's God. And so again, if you're listening to this message today, give it to Him. If you just got out of a relationship and you don't think that there is hope, that you can be in a new one, again, there is hope. Just hold on to faith. Hold on.
So you are in a new relationship.
Yes, ma'am. And it's great, and I'm just taking my time, and I truly believe that the individual understands what I've been through, where I'm at, and it's just great. He's great, and but it definitely it's time, and meeting people where they are, and I think that he did a great job at that. So
You know, time wounds, all heals.
yes, ma'am. Well, we're giving everyone the laughs today, right?
Or something like that.
And I just wanted to kind of piggyback off what they were saying as well about you, Gigi, is I remember when Kim connected us, and I called you and reached out to you and, got to know you a little bit, via telephone. And, I just couldn't get over the fact that, you wanted me to speak on a global panel. I'm like, me? Are you sure? Jamie? And I remember speaking to you, and I had parked the car so I could talk to you and not drive. And I tell you what, in that 30-minute span of us speaking, you built me up, through, I know God was right there with me in the car, with us, and it wasn't by mistake that were connected and crossed paths. And he just vesseled through Kim and all these channels to, put us together. And by the end of that conversation, I was like, I'm going to be on a global panel. Because I wasn't sure. I just didn't have enough.
You weren't sure you deserved to be there.
No.
But you do.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember that?
I do. I remember it very. Yeah, Jamie used to come in every morning and park her stuff on the floor next to her chair, and she'd sit in my office and pretty much just process everything that she needed to process out loud. And she says that I helped her. I don't know that I helped her. I just listened.
It was early in my recovery, and God placed her in my life and blessed me with so many different people, including you, including Kim. And so, I can't say, oh, I did this all by myself. No, but I do know for a fact that when I, lost my spiritual contact, when I was spiritually broke and empty inside, things in my life weren't going well at all. And finally, when I'm not gonna lie, I was in jail, and I had a come to Jesus meeting, and he never left me. And I've said this on the platform, not one time, I let go of his hand. He didn't let go of mine. And so when I just, I know this sounds silly, but I remember just reaching out and, clutching his hand again. And then from that point, I'm where I'm at today, and I'll never let go again. And I know that I'm in his arms as well. But it's a beautiful thing how God works in my life now, because my life is really good. And I'm not saying I don't have bad days in between. We all do, but it is I live a productive, good God in my life, I love I mean, God is so good to me that I have been in an abusive marriage, and then had an abusive boyfriend after that marriage. And today I can honestly say I'm single, and I'm okay with that. And it's for a reason. And I've been able to work on my spiritual connection with God, with my own mental and emotional healing, and by myself with my children. and this is probably the best time this is the best time in my life right now, and I can say it's only because of God's will and not my own, because my own lands me in jail and using drugs.
God's timing is always right. I'll say it again, God's timing is always right. And so it's not about if you'll get married, it's about when you'll get married. And Jamie, I truly believe that there is somebody out there praying for you right now. And so oftentimes, and you're not aware of that, right? But God knows. And so it's on his timing. It's on his timing. And so it's just merely building you up to be the woman that he needs you to be for that person. You're unbeknownst to you. And so I won't even be surprised. You'll see. And so there is hope. There is hope. He's there. He's there, Jamie. He's there.
All day.
Well, Jamie has a lot to share. I mean, when she's involved in a relationship, she has a lot to share because she gives of herself 100%. So whoever winds up with her is going to have one heck of a happy life.
Thank you.
But they're also going to have their hands full.
Oh, yes, that's true too.
And I remember Jamie's story, and I remember her coming forward about what you've been through, and it's not easy. It's not easy to come forward about the story that you shared. So I just commend you and thank you for coming forward about your story.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be able to have a voice on your platform and in your book, and just, let people know that they don't have to suffer in silence. I can identify, and I'm sure in the book, like anyone that reads it, I'm sure that they can identify with maybe all of the co-authors, something, one of the topics in the book that a lot of people can relate to.
And we are giving this book away on the show today.
And we have.
So,
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
wants to call in.
I forgot.
We are giving this book away.
So give us a call if you're interested in a copy of this book, and you really should be. It's excellent. 316-337-5501 is the number to call, and it's a signed copy. So there you go.
And Gigi, I know we've kept you past your time. Are you still good?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you decided to stay a little bit longer.
Yes.
Join us. We are a good group to join.
We can behave ourselves if we have to. We don't want to, but we can.
So what is your, I'm just curious, what is your next project that you're working on right now? Because I know it's something.
Thank you, Jamie. And you all asked great questions today, by the way. Thank you. When we talk about the projects, just again, listening to him and what God needs me to do as far as the upcoming events that we have, I'm looking at it here. We have a few. We have the OCD Warriors Conference, ADHD, Foster Care Warriors, and then we also have the Royal Warriors Conference coming up in Miami, Florida. It's a leadership, business-based, and faith-based conference, one that we encourage you all to join us. Make sure to bring a notebook and a pen. These are events you do not want to miss, and so essentially it's for you. This is for you. It's for you. If you're listening to this message today, it's for you. You all matter, and every one of your voices matters. And Jamie's been there, Kim has been there. You all know about the events, and it's your voice. It's your voice that matters, right? And if you're listening to this message today and you feel that you do not have a voice, I want to remind you that you have a voice. Yes, you. Yes, I'm talking to you. You have a voice, and your voice matters.
Yes, indeed.
Can these conferences be attended remotely?
Yes. So essentially, they all started around COVID, and so just listening to God, and I remember just sitting there, and I said, "Okay, God, all right, you want me to host an event?" And I thought it was going to be in person. Then COVID happens, and I said, "All right, God," and He wanted me to do them online, and so I said, "Okay," and then I literally learned technology to be able to bring these events forward, and so I just listened into him and what he needed me to do, and I learned it, and we just haven't stopped doing the online summit since. They've just been continuing to move forward, and that's by his direction, not mine. And I say, okay, even with the dates that are selected, I say, okay, God, all right, when and what month? And then I just let him guide me, literally. And on the topics too. If it's something that gut feeling and I'm listening to God and it's just not right, not doing it. You will not see me there. I listen to him only, and only the topics that he needs me to cover and the time it needs me to be covered. And I truly believe it's in that time that it needs to happen. I truly believe that. So I listen to him and I step into it.
Well, in doing them online, you can reach so many more people, which is a wonderful thing.
Yes, ma'am. And hopefully moving forward, we can begin to do them in person more often. And we've been looking to do that, but there was a COVID variant that happened where we actually we were going to do them in person, and we said, well, wait a minute now, because of that new COVID variant, we actually may have to take a step back from doing those in-person events. So hopefully in 2024, we can begin to do more in-person events. I'm praying and I'm hoping for that. So hopefully.
Will it be a combination that you can attend it or you can watch it online?
Hybrid, yes, ma'am. We can definitely do those as well.
And so I have another question. Like, if someone wanted to follow and follow your events that you have, your upcoming events, how would they do so? How would they get connected with, what you got going on?
That's
Could you tell our viewers?
So great question, Jamie. So they can actually find that information on Life Service Center of America, LLC.com. Again, it's Life Service Center of America, LLC.com, under the events tab. And it will state the upcoming events. And then also too, if they're a speaker and they're interested in speaking, they can actually fill out a form under our speakers tab. And so we want to hear from you. Your voice matters. Remember to have faith over fear. If it's your first time you're going to share your story, I want to encourage you to share the story because it matters. Your story matters. And to not give up. And again, to keep moving forward. We have to keep moving forward. And remember, it's not about us. It's about the people that we serve. And we need to continue to share this information out. And I truly believe that again, if God led you to it, He will bring you through it. So if He tells you to move, you move.
Well, it looks like we have a winner on the book. Is this Jane?
Yes.
Hi, Jane. I imagine that you're calling about the book Healing and Growth.
Okay, that sounds good. I just wanted to make a comment, though, that I enjoyed the program.
Oh, I'm glad you did. Well, since you're the first caller, you won the Healing and Growth book as a signed copy, and you can come by the station here at 934 North Water and pick it up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments you want to make while we have you on the line?
I think you should do another meeting like that every couple of months or so. I think it's really it's positive. It's very positive.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm really glad you called.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. Well, so we have a winner on the book. That's good. And it's...
We already took notes on that.
Okay.
I don't know if she can hear. Can she hear?
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, did you hear, were you able to hear the call?
Yes, I was. Yes,
Okay, I thought you could, but I wasn't sure. My husband is the general manager here, and he's the tech genius, and so he's the one that has to make all this stuff work. And he usually gets it done, so.
And he did a great job, and thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm talking about your husband.
Yeah, you don't have to call him sir. He answers to Ron or sweetheart.
I'm very traditional, very very conservative. If you have
Gigi, real quick. Also, your podcast. How could people get connected to that as well?
Absolutely. So they can actually subscribe on the Life Service Center of America LLC.com website, but then also we're on Apple and all major podcast platforms. And again, when you're listening to the podcast, make sure to have a notebook and pen as well. Again, it's for you, and there's value provided in there in every single podcast. So just be mindful of that. And I say that why? Because my niece, she came forward and she said, "Auntie, I'm listening in and I'm taking notes." I said, "You're listening in and you're taking notes?" And I said, "She's so young." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I get it, God." It's a reminder that you just never know who's listening in, and it doesn't matter what age group. The children need the message too.
Yes.
That's right. In fact, hopefully by learning this message now, she will save herself from having a bad experience in the future.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And actually, I believe you actually got to meet her at the conference. She was with me at the conference, Jamie.
Yeah, on the global panel.
Yes.
Yeah, she was assisting with your Zoom.
Yeah. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, her. She's taking notes.
Okay.
Well, Gigi, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
You made it.
Thank you for having me, ladies. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I didn't know that the roots of wisdom teeth can lengthen and become entangled around the nerves in the lower jaw. My surgery was more complicated, and I had to reschedule my family vacation.
I had a cyst around my impacted wisdom tooth. I was referred to an OMS to have it removed. I was so worried. I wish I would have taken care of this when I was younger.
Some things get better with age. Your wisdom teeth are not one of them. Visit myoms.org to find an OMS near you.
You've worked hard. You've earned a life that you can call your